Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a Ramseys Ramblings on Discontinued Fragrances. And this is actually probably one of my favorite types of videos to do. I have a playlist dedicated to it. Many people have given me feedback that this is their favorite video to actually watch. The problem is I've gone through so many of these already. If you go take a look, go back through the previous episodes if you're interested in learning, more about the fragrances that I talked about on the previous videos. And so I have to build up more discontinued fragrances to talk about. So a couple housekeeping notes. Number one, many of these discontinuations are according to sites like Parfumo or Base Notes, so take that with a grain of salt. It may not be a foolproof strategy. There may be something in here that is not technically discontinued. Also, there are some fragrances that are still in production, but maybe in a reformulated packaging, and I'm going to recommend going for the older version if you can get it. And so I'm still including those previous versions in this particular, groupings of videos. And so what ended up bringing this video today, coming forth today with this video, is my scent of the day, because this was actually very kindly sent to me by Armando. Armando the Fair is his nickname as far as I'm concerned, because he has been more than fair with me. He's introduced me to some outrageous gems. And granted, I have bought a lot of stuff from him as well, but he has just sent me a bunch of free things as well. This was a freebie, and it's actually so good, I'm actually thinking about getting a backup bottle. This is discontinued. It's from the house of Aubusson. And Aubusson is actually a house that gets almost no talk, and I think that's going to change in the future. My guess is it's going to change in the future as people realize what they've had to offer. They actually made an appearance on Ramsey's Ramblings on Discontinued Fragrances already, but it was for Aubusson Homme. This is actually a fragrance that came out a couple years before Aubusson Homme, and it's their best fragrance as far as I'm concerned. This is called Futuros. And Futuros is an 80s bombastic, masculine, spicy leather. There's a little bit of clove in here, or it smells like there's a little bit of clove. But don't let that put you off, because this is mostly about the leather, the oak moss, the woody notes, and the floral notes. And remember, in the late 80s, this came out in 1987, if I'm not mistaken. And in the late 80s, it was competing against things like Iquitos, and it was competing against things like, think about things like Furio, for example. In the late 80s, it came out. Yeah, 87 this came out. So it's floral, it's green, but it's that spicy leather that gets me, and you get it almost instantly. As soon as you spray, you'll get that leather. But it's so fantastic. It's probably going to compete with something that I'm going to show you next, as far as smoky leather goes. But this brings in more floral notes, as was customary in the late 80s. If you think about these floral masculines like Tenere or Iquitos, which have all made my previous Ramsey's Ramblings videos. And so that's one that definitely is going to get added to the potential backup bottle list for me, though. Futuros is the best Aubusson fragrance as far as I'm concerned. Okay, next on the list is one, actually an entire house that I am a little shocked none of them have made this list yet. I keep a kind of a master, Word document with all of the ones that I've talked about, and I haven't talked about any of this house, and they're all discontinued. So this is probably the best from the house as far as I'm concerned. It's also their 1987 release. Normally the 80s releases, as far as I'm concerned, are the best. This is true for this as well. But the other two fragrances that this house has are equally nice, but not as nice as this. So this is Francesco Smalto Pour Homme, or Francesco Smalto, from 1987. I think it's literally just called Francesco Smalto, but Smalto Pour Homme is what it's known as. This is much more green, and I would say traditionally, this is more like a traditional fougere, so it's going to get compared to something like Enrico Coveri Pour Homme or something like that. It has more of the lavender touch, more of the traditional, lavender, geranium, tonka. I think there is potentially tonka in Futuros, but it doesn't have kind of the lavender traditional fougere that this has. That's what makes this so unique, is it's really focusing more on the leather and the clove and the woody notes and stuff like that. But that smoky leather in the base of each will kind of remind you a little bit of each other, but the leather is even much more turned up. This may sound insane, but I might even enjoy this a little bit more just because of how outrageous it is. Oh, it's so good. I've been just loving wearing this today as my scent of the day. This is also fantastic, though. This is also probably backup bottle worthy for me. It just focuses more on the herbal notes like the rosemary, tarragon, lavender. There's a little bit of anise when you first spray this. And so if you like a traditional fougere, but you want to kind of get this smoky, leathery, Italian, style oak moss and leather in the base with a classic fougere structure, Francesco Smalto's Pour Homme. Fantastic fragrance. Okay, the other two from the house, which are nice, but I don't think I don't like them as much as the OG, as the original. In 1992, this came out, and this is Francesco Smalto's Molto Smalto. And Molto Smalto is basically a fragrance that focuses on a couple main notes as far as I'm concerned. Lavender and sandalwood. Those are the two big ones. There's also amber and cedar and musk in the base, and you'll get all that. And you're starting to get a little bit of that 90s cleanliness that starts to come through here. It's a much cleaner wear than Smalto Pour Homme is. Although there is some clary sage, which gives off a little bit of this sweaty, masculine vibe. Geranium, jasmine, and lily of the valley in the heart. But really, it's this combination of lavender and sandalwood. And there's another lavender sandalwood combo coming up very soon, which I think is just the master. It came out a couple years after this, and I just wore it last week when I was on my business trip as my scent of the day, actually on the main day, which I had to give a presentation, and it just worked beautifully. I mean, it's a boss CEO scent, but so is this. This is so pleasant, so nice. Discontinued. It was last marketed by Parlux. Yeah, Molto Smalto is, I think it's bottle worthy. I don't think it's backup bottle worthy, though, if that makes sense. And then another one, which I've only sprayed it once. It was an early impression video. I did it in the hotel room. If you see the video with me kind of in a suit, the thumbnail from a couple of videos back in the hotel room, that's the only time I've ever smelled this one. But I think this is also full bottle worthy. I have to get to know it a little better. Interestingly enough, Parfumo shows that this came out in 1987. That's incorrect. If you go to base notes, this is Smalto by Francesco Smalto. So I thought, because there was Smalto, and then there was Molto Smalto, and if you look on Parfumo, this actually shows it came out in 87. This shows it came out in 92. That's incorrect. Actually, this came out in 92. That's correct. But this came out in 1998. And, if you go watch that video of me in the hotel room doing kind of like an early impression on this one, you'll notice I'm saying, you know what? This doesn't smell like an 80s fragrance to me. It smells so modern, and that was exactly why. It's not an 80s fragrance. And so that makes perfect sense now that I know that. But Smalto by Francesco Smalto is a fragrance that really focused a lot, I thought, on kind of the vanilla and the tonka bean in the base. There was also cedar, sandalwood, chamomile, balsams, and honey with bergamot, absinthe, and lavender in the top. And I think I could come around to enjoy this. The vanilla and tonka bean may put, someone that's a true traditionalist off, people that only like stuff from the 70s and 80s, nothing past, that line in the sand year of, say, 1993, 1994. Perfume died after that. They never want to wear anything after that. They may not like this because it is leaning a little bit more modern, if you will. A little bit more modern to my nose. There was also a little bit of sweetness, but I could stomach it. At least when I smelled it for the very first time, I could stomach the sweetness, and I think I'll come around to liking this. I like it. I think I'll come around to really liking it. Interestingly enough, the collar on this kind of works like a Terre Hermes collar, where you just kind of turn it and it reveals the atomizer, and then you can close it up this way so you can't spray it, so you can store it or something if you bring it with you. The box feels like you are almost feeling like a jeans, almost like a jean type denim like feel. And this is all raised, so kind of nice packaging. I went through the attic recently and I pulled out some of my vintage boxes. I don't have boxes for everything, obviously, but the ones that I do have, I went up there and I kind of pulled them out, the ones I thought were kind of cool, because people were asking if they could see the boxes. They were like, other channels always show boxes. You don't really show boxes very often. It's because I had nothing but bottles here. The boxes were all stored in the attic. So just the regular, newer boxes, I pretty much left alone. But the vintage boxes, like this, I kind of took them out of the attic. This just recently came, so it never made it up to the attic. But instead of just taking the bottle out, I'm starting to kind of store them in the boxes if I have them, so I can show you guys the boxes where appropriate. I think it's kind of a cool thing to be able to see the box here where applicable, right? Okay, so next on the list, we're going to go to the House of Lancome. There's two from the House of Lancome. One is actually still being marketed, but it's being marketed by L'Oreal. I'm going to recommend, if you want my advice, I'm going to recommend avoiding the newer L'Oreal version of this and only go for this vintage if you can find it. However, prices on this can get expensive, but if you ever see a bottle at a reasonable price, go for it. This is a fantastic fragrance, one of the best from the 1960s, and it's called Balafre. And Balafre, I actually got this particular bottle from my friend Antonio in Italy. He does not ship to the United States anymore, unfortunately. Italy had some issues with shipping and customs and all this stuff. And so, you know, you have to be, I think, in Europe or continental Europe or in Italy or something like that to buy from him. But he has some outlandish vintage stuff. And this was one of them that I got from him. Balafre Monsieur by Lancome. Let me show you what the bottle looks like. It's basically a woody, spicy fragrance that opens up with some bergamot and chamomile, cypress, green notes, lavender, neroli, with a heart of carnation, cedarwood, clary sage, pine needle, and geranium, and with a base of oak moss, amber, leather, musk, and vetiver. So as far as 60s fragrances go, many 60s fragrances are just a little bit boring to me. Take something like Eau Sauvage by Dior. I would take Balafre over Eau Sauvage any day of the week because it has that piney, leathery feel, spicy, leathery feel. And yet, it's still classic enough where you could easily wear this to an important business meeting or something like that. There's a little bit of freshness here. The old school carnation is lovely. Cedarwood, the lavender, it's just it's a timeless kind of masculine as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, from the 60s, I would much rather take something like this or the original Aramis from a couple years before this. You know, if you made me pick a fragrance from the 60s, but that is on this list because this is the vintage version. And if you can find this, I would say go for it. Okay. So next on the Ramseys Ramblings on Discontinued fragrance list is a Lancome fragrance. And this is actually called Cuir de Lancome. And so this is Lancome's version of a leather. And this is not a big bombastic leather. It's nothing like Bel Ami or anything like that. This is kind of a floral take on leather. And you can see I've already put a pretty respectable dent in this. I've only had this 3 or 4 months, and I've worn it a couple times already. I really like this. As far as, you know, a floral leather fragrance goes, I would even imagine something like Dior's Cuir Canage, which I also wore on my trip. Beautiful. Really enjoyed wearing that as well. Imagine Cuir Canage, but even more floral. Like you amped up the florals big time. So you added things like hawthorn. Hawthorn always adds this white tan. You know, usually I find hawthorn blended with some sort of leather, birch type materials. And Jean-Claude Elena did that whenever he did Cuir d'Ange, angel leather. And it just gives off this kind of white, tan, like handbag feel. This kind of soft, supple calf type leather, right? And this has a little bit of that. The leather in this feels very soft. There's almost nothing harsh about it. There's a little bit of saffron in the opening. Saffron adds this kind of depth to the fragrance. I did an entire This Is Not a Top 10 on saffron. If you want to go check that out, you can. With bergamot, mandarin orange, and then the heart, you get patchouli And then kind of the star of the show is ylang ylang, jasmine, hawthorn, with 3 notes in the base. Birch, which usually birch adds this big, bombastic kind of smokiness to it. Imagine the smoky elements of Aventus, that's birch. Or the smoky elements, smoky, leathery elements of something like Eau de Hermes. That's birch from 1951. And here, it's birch, but it's mixed with this lovely iris. A little bit powdery, not really cosmetic-y, but maybe leaning in that direction without being cosmetic, if that makes sense. So maybe kind of looking towards the direction of Dior Homme, but that styrax in the base adds this waxy element to the perfume. Many might say that this is leaning feminine, but I had no problem wearing this at all. I think it's completely unisex and absolutely beautiful, and it's too bad it's discontinued. It's supposed to be similar to a fragrance which is long gone. And that fragrance is called, the fragrance that it's supposed to be kind of similar to is a fragrance called Tabac Blonde by Kern. Now, I've never smelled that, but I hear that the leather aspect is just more amped up in that one. There's some, old school vetiver and vintage carnation and stuff like that in there, which you don't get in Cuir de Lancome. But I'm still very glad to have it. It's discontinued and prices are starting to go up. I would say if you can find this bottle, which this is a 50 ml. Yeah, this is a 50 ml. If you can find this 50 ml bottle for, I would say, 80 or 90 bucks, go for it. Over 100, no. I'd probably pass over 100. I fixed the cap. The collar was actually stuck inside of the cap. So I took the collar out, put it back on. Now the cap works again. Because before, it was not working. So these caps are known to kind of have issues. But I like the bottle design. It's simple yet elegant and classy. Okay, next on the list, we have a Jean Patou. And in one of my previous Ramseys Ramblings videos, I actually already talked about Patou Pour Homme, the OG. Some people consider the greatest masculine ever created from 1980. This is the flanker. And just look at how they used to do flankers back in the day. Now they put out a fragrance and the next year they do like a flanker. And then sometimes even later in the same year, they do another flanker of the same fragrance. Not so back in the day. This is 14 years after the original Patou Pour Homme came out. And this is Patou Pour Homme Privé. And whenever I needed to wear a boss scent for my presentation, this is what I went with. This is so posh. I mean, you just walk in, you own the room wearing this. There's no doubt about it. You absolutely own the room. It is basically a fougere. It's lavender, and instead of coumarin, it has this hay note is what they list. But the hay note almost gives it like this tobacco feel, almost like the hay note in Dunhill Blend 30. If you've ever smelled Dunhill Blend 30, these are, and that made one of my previous Ramseys Rambling videos as well. These are kind of connected to me. This, Dunhill Blend 30, and you could say the original Patou Pour Homme as well is kind of connected to Dunhill Blend 30. But just the way that hay, lavender, sandalwood combination kind of works together. There's a little bit of patchouli, but it's never, the thing about this is it's never, so this cap is kind of cool. Look, you spin it, it pops, you spin it again, and then you can take it off. So when you close it, just to prove that it's closed, you spin it, it clicks, but it's not closed. You have to spin it again. Then it's closed. So kind of a cool little locking mechanism to make sure it's completely closed, because you don't want to spill a drop of this. And look at the box. So the box almost has this wood, and this is known for its Mysore sandalwood. The reason that this goes for such high prices online, this can be $1,000 perfume, easily. The reason that it goes for such prices online is because Jean Carlio, who was the in-house perfumer of Patou for decades and decades and decades, and then whenever he retired in the 90s, he actually went to go be the kind kind of the, you know, watch the executor, or the what would you call it? Kind of the I can't really say in-house perfumer, but he's over at the Osmotek. He runs the Osmotek. He's kind of in charge of the Osmotek, if you will. And so, damn cat. So he kind of gets to play with old perfumes and make sure that the formulas are safe and all that stuff. So I'm sure he's lived an absolute dream. He's one of the greatest perfumers of all time, as far as I'm concerned. And he loved using basically the highest quality materials money could buy. So whenever you see sandalwood in these old, Jean Patous, it was Mysore. And Mysore has taken on this mythical quality nowadays, but it's really just a type of sandalwood. And here it comes across as kind of milky, slightly honeyed, but also a little bit musky. There's no musk listed, but you almost get like this lavender, sandalwood, and patchouli with that hay, and it smells like there's slightly musky, but it's just so well balanced. It's so, I mean, it's just so elegant is what it really is. Elegance is the word as far as I'm concerned. And whenever you need kind of that high-powered fragrance, whenever you need to kind of look like the boss or smell like the boss, you can't go wrong with Patou, Pour Homme, Privé. Okay. And special shout out to Mike, who gave me a very fair, Mike B gave me a very fair price on this. So thanks, Mike. Okay, so next on the list is a Halston. There's actually 3 Halstons. They're all discontinued. None of them have made my Ramseys Ramblings, videos yet. So we're going to start with one, and it's called Halston Halston 112. Z-14 is next. So according to Parfumo, both of these came out in 1976. Someone was telling me that I think one of them came out maybe a couple years before, but I can't remember which one. But Halston 112 is basically this, so it's basically this spicy green floral fougere. Okay, there's lavender again. This is 1976. So there's lavender, but it opens up very green. And if you think in the 1970s, what was the big thing in women's fragrances? This is a masculine. But what was the big thing in women's fragrances? It was that green galbanum note with things like Chanel No. 19, right? And so this kind of adds a little bit of that basil, galbanum, green opening, a little bit citrusy. And I think I think the reason this never really took off and did as well as it should have done is the floral heart in this is pretty big. So you will get lavender, and that keeps it very traditionally masculine with that tonka bean. It's a fougere through and through. They've added pine needles, which again stays with that green element. But they've really amped up the floral heart, so you get a lot of carnation and jasmine, and juniper adds a little bit of freshness to it. Very wearable in the summer for me. I have no problem wearing this, even though there's musk, there's labdanum, cedar, oak moss, amber, tonka, and vanilla. I can wear this any day. This is a year-round fragrance for me, and I'm glad I got the big boy bottle, 3.9 fluid ounce. So this is discontinued. Parfumo says the production was apparently discontinued, which is a shame because, this, and then also its iconic brother, which came out very close to each other in years. This is Z-14. So Z-14, and this bottle is pretty interesting because if you look on the bottom of this one, it actually says made in France. I guess the really early bottles were made in France. I thought all of the Halston fragrances were made in the USA because it's a US brand. But this influenced, oh yeah, I mean, this, and I do have a backup of this, thank God, but this fragrance basically influenced people like Tom Ford to put out the type of fragrances that he put out. If you've ever smelled things like Italian Cypress, which I don't have a bottle of. I would love to have one, but they're very expensive nowadays because that's also discontinued. Italian Cypress is actually named Italian Cypress because of Z-14. If you look at the Z-14 note listing, there's Cypress in the top. And, you know, this fragrance was kind of like Tom Ford's, the scent of his youth, if you will. And he loves Z-14. He makes no qualms about it. And this is, so Z-14 to me is a classic. I don't think it smells cheap at all. I think it smells beautiful. That cinnamony, you know, you basically get this kind of spicy, woody cinnamon type smell. Some say the cinnamon smells like a red hot. I wouldn't go that far, but the cinnamon is extremely prominent in this. There are some other fragrances that I think take a lot of notes from this. Like, for example, if you've ever smelled Clive Christian's X for Men, X smells like a niche version of Z-14 to me. If you've ever smelled Vendetta by the house of Valentino, Vendetta Pour Homme, sorry, not the women's version, but Vendetta Pour Homme, that takes a lot of notes from Z-14, but adds a little bit of a twist like bay rum and stuff like that to it. So Z-14, discontinued, it's a shame. The good news is there's a ton of bottles out there. The bad news is the last decade or so of its reign, whenever EA, Elizabeth Arden, had the license for Halston, they really watered it down. It's not bad, it's just really watered down and slightly synthetic smelling. The older versions like this smell stunning. This is 80, you can see 82 proof down on the bottom. Made in France, very strange. I've never seen a made in France bottle from Halston, but it smells divine. So I'm very lucky to have that one. And then finally, the newest Halston in my collection is a Halston fragrance from 1994, and this is called Catalyst. So some of these, if you follow the channel, you've heard about, you know, as the year has gone on and as I've put videos out. These are things I have talked about on the channel before, but these just have not made one of these Ramseys Ramblings on Discontinued fragrance videos yet. So that's why they're in here today. And oh, Catalyst is it's so complex. It's spicy, it's woody. There's a million notes in here, actually. If you look up the note listing, it's huge. And it's made by two all-star perfumers, as far as I'm concerned. Elias Hermendis and Harry Fremont. And I think Harry Fremont is very underrated as a perfumer. So this is galbanum, sage, basil, tarragon, caraway, jasmine, lavender, tuberose, bergamot, mandarin orange, mint, narcissus, orange, vodka, and rose. That's the top. The mid is nutmeg, chamomile, cinnamon, grass, bay leaf, blackcurrant, geranium, lily of the valley, violet, and rose. And the base is frankincense, labdanum, leather, oak moss, benzoin, cedar, tonka bean, amber, musk, patchouli, sandalwood, vetiver, and castoreum. And so there's just a little bit of this kind of funky animalic bit in the base, a little bit earthy, a little bit slightly kind of, you know, that warm metallic twang of castoreum in the base, a little bit resinous, a little bit smoky, but mostly spicy and woody. As obviously you can see, Halston liked spicy, woody fragrances. So Roja Dove, eat your heart out with the note listing on Catalyst. It's insane. But it's so good. It's so wearable. And, you know, you just think about this particular one is a Halston Fragrances Inc. bottle. But you just think about the fact this sat on discounter shelves. This basically sat on, you know, TJ Maxx shelves and Marshall shelves for 15, 20 bucks. No one wanted it. Now it's selling for hundreds on eBay. And that's just how it goes with these vintage fragrances. People realize their worth. And there was an aftershave. Here's the aftershave. And the aftershave actually is kind of a cool deal. It's a little different. The aftershave is a little different than the EDT because they've added a little bit more of this kind of minty, fresher type opening. But look at the time and dedication that they put into the presentation. So these are obviously, you know, chemistry, beakers and flacons. And, you know, this is actually kind of a two-tone juice. So if you're supposed to shake it up before you use it, and it kind of blends together. Look at this. How cool is that? And then it resettles back into the two-tone juice. But yeah, Catalyst for Men Aftershave, just fantastic stuff. This is 1994, right? Basically, when people like me, 1994 is kind of the day where, or the year where people who love fragrances like me basically say that that's where everything began to change. 1994, 1995, and on, everything was different from then on out. So, yes, Catalyst for Men, definitely one to put on the list. It's discontinued if you can find it. If you can get a fair deal on it, it's worth grabbing. It's great stuff. And finally, I've talked about, well, finally for this house, as far as this, you know, episode goes, Ramsey's Ramblings, I've talked about Sentiment, I've talked about, Pour Homme, Sentiment Pour Homme, I've talked about Magnetism, I've talked about Casual Friday. The last one to talk about, and again, I've talked about this a lot on the channel, but not this particular series. This is Escada Pour Homme. So Escada Pour Homme is backup bottle worthy for me. I would love to find a big bottle of the Eau de Parfum. It's impossible to find though. Oh god, you know, it's this falls into this. This actually also falls towards the end of an era, if you will. It came out in 1993, I believe. Yeah, 1993. And Anoush found me a mini of Escada Pour Homme Eau de Parfum. So I have the Eau de Toilette. This is a mini, a 5ml mini of the Eau de Parfum. So I'm going to do a comparison video between the Eau de Parfum and the Eau de Toilette one of these days. But this falls directly into kind of this ambery fougere category that I absolutely love. If you know my taste, I am in love with this type of category. So things like Zeno, things like Heritage by Guerlain, things like YSL Jazz, you know, I lump them all together, and this goes right in that list. If I ever just want to wear something where I just feel comfortable at home, and it just kind of fits my, you know, it fits who I am, this is the kind of thing I reach for. Escada Pour Homme took that kind of DNA. This came out 1 year after Guerlain's Heritage. I think they kind of really took that DNA, which was so popular at the time, and they added their own little twist on it by adding things like cognac and pimento. And the original Patou Pour Homme has a beautiful pimento note in there, and so does this. And so they added that boozy cognac note in the top, but it's just, God, that mixture of that tonka vanilla patchouli in the base with that cognac in the top and that heritage like DNA, that woody oriental type feel. Oh, just to die for. I love that DNA so much. It's fantastic. I think Scannon was the last one to market this. Yeah, I don't know if this is a Scannon bottle or not, but yes, I am hunting the Eau de Parfum. One of these days I'll find a big bottle, hopefully. Okay, next on the list is a fragrance that I have not talked very much about on the channel, but it deserves to be discussed, especially now that we're coming up on spring. Springtime is perfect for this scent because it's kind of this fresh, fruity scent, but it also has these, you know, pissy blackcurrant leaf, this very animalic, but not in a civet or castoreum way, more like kind of a pissy blackcurrant leaf way. And this is called Otto Kern's Cycle. So I hunted this box down for you guys from the attic, just so you could see. And it was a bitch digging through all those boxes, I'll tell you that. But this is really good stuff. Probably the only Otto Kern fragrance worth hunting down, in my opinion, because he was still alive in 1991 when this came out. And you can see kind of the bicycle bell cap, which some think is kind of tacky. I actually like it. And this is, it's just, there's very little that I've smelled like this. there are niche fragrances that try to do what this does, and they don't get anywhere near the mark. You know, this is a little bit minty and fresh in the opening with those green notes. It's 1991, so they still made kind of the, you know, they still made the masculine fragrances masculine. This is way before we got to the everything is sweet and that generic tonka in the base. No, this is woody, fruity, but also pissy, animalic, but in a different way than what you're used to. And just perfect for spring. That intermediate weather, beautiful. So Otto Kern's Cycle deserves some love. Discontinued and deserves some love. Okay, next on the list, I wore this a couple weeks ago. Actually, I wore it to go see my family, and my old man actually kind of liked it. He wears Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. That's his signature scent. So I like kind of wearing things from, you know, the 70s or 80s around him just to get his 2 cents. But this is the kind of thing that he liked. And he did like this one, but he said it was a little bit weird. And it is a little bit weird, but it's good. It's Missoni Uomo. And Missoni Uomo is a fragrance that was issued or released in 1983. So it's basically a leathery, spicy scent, but what makes it weird is if you smell this, you may have a hard time picking it up at first, but there's this mixture of this green galbanum in the top, which usually galbanum comes across as very kind of resinous and green. And here it's there, but mostly what you pick up is this spicy leather, you know, cinnamony, spicy leather with patchouli, and the base is made out of things like cistus, labdanum, leather. There's a little bit of frankincense, and so that cistus leathery base gives you slight hints of OR Black from Pascal Moribito, which I actually prefer this to Missoni Uomo, hands down. OR Black is so good. It kind of gives you hints of the way that the leather accord was built there, but it goes in its own direction because I've never really smelled anything that smells exactly like this. It's a little bit sour, and yes, you do get a little bit of greenness, but it's like a spicy greenness. And there is florals, there's vetiver, there's rose, there's, you know, jasmine and clove. There's also clove in here. So the clove is one of the spicy notes that you get right away, but it dries down to this sort of resinous, you know, ambery. There is ambergris in here. They claim that there's ambergris in the base. It's an 80s fragrance that smells like an 80s fragrance, and yet it doesn't smell like anything else, if that makes sense. So Anuj at Enchanté does still have bottles of Missoni Uomo if you're interested. I think 50 ml is perfect size for me. I wouldn't go for a second bottle of this. I enjoy it, but that's as far as it goes. I think that weird combination in the opening, you know, would stop it from being backup bottle worthy. Okay, next on the list is a fragrance that the part 2 version of this actually already made one of these Ramseys rambling videos, but I got this one probably in the last 4 or 5 months, and I haven't really talked about it very much on the channel. I got this for dirt cheap on Mercari. This is the original Del Oro Russian Leather. So interestingly enough, Del Oro is a brand that was based in California. And there was a court case, I believe, or according to the United States Copyright Office, the term Russian leather can actually not be copyrighted. So there was 1 million of these kind of generic Russian leathers floating around over the last, you know, 70, 80, 90 years in the United States. Brands like Elsha, which I've actually never smelled Elsha's version of this, but I got the part 2 of Del Oro's Russian Leather for peanuts. I mean, the guy basically gave it to me. I paid like $10, you know. He's like, here, I have no clue what this is. Take it. My uncle died or something. And I got it for a song. And I smelled it and I was like, wow, this is really good. This is way punches way above its weight class. So kind of the same thing happened with this. This popped up on Mercari. You can see the juice fill. They claim this is 24 karat gold on here. Look at this. I don't know if you can see this, but can you read that? It says the most treasured. Oops, that's not it. It's on the other side. Sorry. This is it. Look at this. How ridiculous is that? 22 karat gold, hand decorated. It just looks kind of, it doesn't look very high class to me, but I get what they're trying to do. And now this was like 15 bucks, okay? Because I think some guy maybe bought like a storage locker or something, and this was part of it. So I had a feeling it was going to be turned. It's not, luckily. You can see it's not the cleanest. You know, it's sat around for a long time, but the smell, God, that birch, you know, this is you know, you talk about that birch note, and when you read it in fragrances like this, you get almost no birch, not in the sense of, you know, real birch like in Russian leather, or heavy birch, or some sort of birch tar replicator that they used, or whatever it ended up coming to. But I would love to smell some of these other smaller, you know, houses that have done these Russian leathers, Royal Argenta, Prince Obolensky, you know, stuff like that, you know, smelling this and, you know, that birch oil, leathery, animalic type smell. It's so good. It's so, so good. Oh, you know, and for the money, I mean, you can't beat this. 15 bucks, no brainer. Now, you'll find these bottles on eBay for hundreds, but if you wait long enough, someone will end up throwing one on there. They have no clue. They're like, what the hell is this? And who would pay more than 10 bucks for it? They'll put it up there, and that's when you can snag it. Okay, next on the list is one of the newbies that I bought off of Perfume Planet when I was in Houston. And this is Ultraviolet Man. So I had Ultra Red Man, which is discontinued, as is Ultraviolet Man from Paco Rabanne. And I think this is a little bit of an older bottle. I don't know how far this ran into the future, but this says copyright 2007, made in Spain. So it must be a little bit of an older version. I don't know how long ago this was discontinued, but it came out in 2001. And basically the note listing is a little bit weird. It's Russian coriander, Italian mint, and the bottle's like a stapler gun. Here's the sprayer right here. So you get Russian coriander and Italian mint in the top, ambergris and black pepper in the heart, and crystallized moss and patchouli in the base. And basically, it ends up smelling kind of like this musky Tonka. You know, definitely smells like Tonka to me. Even though there's no Tonka listed, I get a huge Tonka note. Ambery, kind of a little bit sweet, but almost a little bit fruity too. Even though there's no fruity notes, that Russian coriander comes across as maybe smelling slightly fruity. Maybe it's just the color of the juice, but I get a little bit of a blueberry type accord in here. Jacques Cavalier is the perfumer. And, you know, he's an all-star perfumer, so he knows his stuff. It's a decent designer. Don't pay more than 50 bucks for it, which is what I paid for or 50. I paid 55 for the 100 ml. Yeah, I wouldn't pay over 50. It's interesting, but I would say this would smell amazing on like a high school kid or something. I think it's a younger man's scent, but I'm glad to have it for the scent armory. Okay, next on the list, we are going to go to Givenchy. And I've talked about some Givenchys on this list before, but this is one I've not talked about yet, and it is Insense. Again, dug the box out of the attic for you guys, so I hope you enjoy it. It was a bitch getting all these out of there. So this, whoops, let's turn this the right way though. I'm not used to boxes. This is a floral masculine, as they describe it. And if you've ever smelled Nino Cerruti's Pour Homme from 1978 or 79, you'll get an idea of where Insense is going. It's floral, it's green, it's citrusy, there's some orange and basil and blackcurrant, slightly fruity too. You know, this is 1993, so you expect a little bit of that fruity, you know, easier to wear fragrances were coming out in the 90s. And the star of the show is the Lily of the Valley, Magnolia, Mastic, and Iris. And that kind of combines to give it this fresh floral take. I don't think there's anything that really makes this masculine other than they marketed it towards men. There's some fir balsams in the base, but this is another one. Don't pay over $50 for this. You know, is it worth adding to the collection if the price is right? Yes. Is it worth hundreds like some people are trying to sell it on eBay? No, absolutely not. This is a fresher 90s take on Nino Cerruti Pour Homme, which I would take Nino Cerruti Pour Homme from the late 70s any day over Insense. I'm glad to have it, again, for the scent armory, but this is one you don't want to overpay for. All right, let me try to put this back because the box is kind of weird. Okay. All right, so next on the list is one I actually bought from Keelan from Sense of South Jersey. And this is one that he gave me a great price on because he didn't know whether it was the cologne or the aftershave. I think this is the cologne. I wore it to bed once and I really enjoyed it. I'm going to wear it as my scent of the day soon, probably sometime this week. But this is called Carrington. And Carrington came out in the year 1984. So there was a cologne and there was an aftershave, and that's it. And so Keelan said that this was his old man's scent. And came out in 84. It was last marketed by Revlon. And the top is anise, basil, bergamot, lavender, and lemon with a heart of carnation, cedarwood, geranium, jasmine, patchouli, vetiver, and ylang-ylang, a base of musk, amber, heliotrope, moss, tonka bean, and vanilla. And this also feels a little bit like an amber fougere. It does have this fougere fern-like aspect to it. But with some, Play-Doh-y texture, vanillic kind of base to it. You know, there's a little bit of spices. There's a little bit of kind of sweetness in the base, but it's very wearable, very 80s too. I really enjoyed this. This is fantastic stuff. For $25, you cannot go wrong on something like this. So thanks again, Keelan, for the great price and the huge sample of Canoe. I'll do a review on that one day soon. Canoe, I did not care for. I'll tell you that. That's one that probably will not get a very good review from me. But Carrington is an absolute winner. So, and by the way, apparently there was a TV series called Dynasty, and Carrington and the female counterpart, which was called Forever Crystal, were released together in the mid-80s. They were the two main characters, Crystal and Blake Carrington from the show. Just a little weird background there. Okay, next on the list is two YSL fragrances, and I think this pretty much rounds out our YSL house. I don't think there's any other discontinued YSL fragrances I have, but the first one is from 1971, and it's called YSL Pour Homme. So YSL Pour Homme is the one that Yves Saint Laurent, the man, actually ended up going butt naked on the advertisement for. If you just go to Parfumo, look up YSL Pour Homme from 1971, you can see the pictures. He posed with clothes on, and he is wearing an outrageous 70s suit. Go check out the suit he's wearing. The suit is actually even better than him posing butt-ass naked for it, because he's wearing this white suit, with almost like this Bill Nye the Science Tie bow tie, and, he's just staring at the camera like he's the coolest thing since sliced bread. And you know what? He is. He absolutely is. That is just badass. and, you know, wearing white shoe. It looks like he's wearing white shoes. This gigantic pocket handkerchief. His hair is like, you know, just 1970s, just, you know, looks like it hasn't been cut in a year or two. Just amazing. But then the next picture is actually him posing butt-ass naked for this. And this was his signature scent, I think, for his entire life. He ended up wearing YSL Pour Homme. The bottles that actually have YSL going up and down are the older ones that you want to go for if you can. Let me see. I think I have a mini. I do have a mini. So this is what the YSL logo going up and down basically looks like. This is still really good. Don't get me wrong. It's discontinued now, so get anything that you can get. But if you had a choice, I would go for the bottle that kind of looks like this. That's the one you want to go for if you have a choice. This is the deep vintage YSL going up and down, whereas the newer ones say YSL along the bottom. But again, doesn't matter. Not a huge difference. There is a difference, but not a huge difference. I'll do a comparison video one day. Oh, it's really good though. So this is kind of this style of fragrance that I've said I don't like for a long time. It's not that I don't like it, it just doesn't move me, you know, and I found out over and over and over again that holds true. It's just my taste. It's kind of like a citrusy chypre, okay? So this has lavender, lemon vervain, petit grain, lemon, bergamot's a big lemon. Kind of like a dirty lemon is the way I would describe this. But the reason I like this more than Eau Sauvage or Chanel's Pour Monsieur, which is in the same realm as far as I'm concerned, is this has more going on in the heart. So once you get to the heart, you get things like clary sage, you get rosemary, you get thyme, you get Brazilian rosewood, which I love, and I'll do it. This is not a top 10 rosewood video. I'm going to make a note of that because someone requested it. Okay. So yeah, you get rosewood, which I love rosewood. My mom had these rosary beads from the Holy Land that were made out of rosewood, and they smell amazing. Carnation, geranium, marjoram with a base of patchouli, cedar, musk, sandalwood, tonka bean, vetiver, and amber. And Raymond Chailan is the perfumer for this. He's an absolute all-star. He also made Balenciaga's Ho Hang, which came out in 1971 as well. So YSL Pour Homme and Ho Hang came out in 1971. And I prefer those two. You know, if I could wear either or of this type of style, I would wear this or Ho Hang over Chanel's Pour Monsieur or over Dior's Eau Sauvage, in my opinion. I prefer the way Raymond Chailan did the interpretation of this style. It still has that old school citrusy style. This is fantastic for a hot day as far as I'm concerned. But it's just a little bit more interesting. And then, that came out in 1971. And then, in 1983, this came out. And this is YSL Pour Homme Haute Concentré. And, again, we're talking 12 years later. Here comes a flanker. That's how they used to do it back in the day. 12 or, 14 years later. Here comes a flanker. And so Haute Concentré is supposed to be kind of their version of I guess an eau de parfum, sort of. They didn't use the words eau de parfum, but it has lemon and herbs and those woody notes we talked about. Carnation and nutmeg with petit grain, rosemary, patchouli, and tonka bean. So, and I'll do a comparison video. This will be a great kind of comparison video as well. The original YSL Pour Homme versus the Haute Concentré. I'll do that video one day. And so this smells like a dirty lemon is kind of what it smells like. It's a little dirtier. It's a little mossier in the dry down. Didn't blow me away the first time I wore it, to be honest with you. I'm glad I have it for the Scent Armory. It's only a 50 ml. But I'm glad I have it. And shout out to, you know who you are. He wants to remain anonymous. But he gave me a very fair price on this. So thank you. Thank you. It's something I've been hunting for a long time. I didn't want to pay an outrageous price, but, you know, my perfume god person gave me a very fair price on this. So, YSL Pour Homme Haute Concentré. Honestly, if you really asked my opinion, I would say just forget about the Haute Concentré. At least just my initial prognosis, go for a vintage of the original. The vintage of the original is the best of all three. Maybe I'll try to find a big bottle of this one day just for the scent armory. Okay, let me put this away. Oh no, will you go back in your wrapper? Ah, you will. You will indeed, with your YSL sticker right here. Okay, so next on the list, we're going to go to a house called Balmain. And Balmain is one of these designer houses that if you ever have like $1,000 burning a hole in your pocket and you want to buy one t-shirt, go to Balmain. Yeah, Balmain, they'll hook you up with a $1,000 t-shirt, no problem. $1,800 shoes, you know, sneakers that just look stupid in my opinion. But yes, if that's your thing, Balmain is your house. But in 1980, they released a women's fragrance, and the perfumer is named Michelle High, and this is called Ivoire de Balmain. Now, Ivoire de Balmain is kind of like this floral chypre that leans slightly aldehydic and slightly soapy. So it's aldehydes, bergamot, chamomile, mandarin orange, marigold, violet, artemisia, and lemon. And there's actually a lot of masculine notes in here. There's orris root, lily of the valley, narcissus, ylang, carnation, jasmine, neroli, Turkish rose, huge floral heart. But there's also nutmeg, cinnamon, and pepper. There's oak moss, sandalwood, amber, musk, tonka bean, vanilla, vetiver, frankincense, patchouli, and raspberry. And interestingly enough, this is a very unique take on a chypre. If you like fragrances that are classic, and if you like fragrances that change a lot and seem very high quality, check this out. It's green, it's floral, it's aldehydic, it's soapy, it's creamy. I mean, it's a little bit of everything. It's oak mossy, it's fruity, it's spicy, it's woody. You know, it's just got all of these elements, and that's the thing about chypres. They're very complex as a whole. Even though this was marketed towards women, I would have no problem wearing it. Absolutely none. It's just you have to be okay with this floral side of it. Okay, next on the list is the one I'm most excited about, my favorite Ebene fragrance. And I actually did a video on this fragrance on the channel already. You can go check it out. And it's called Ebene de Balmain. Now, I bought a full bottle of this, and here it is. Ebene de Balmain. And again, special shout out to my perfume god person. You know who you are. Anuj from Enchanté sent me this 3.5 ml mini, and I did a review on it, and I absolutely loved it. And oh, it is so good. So this is what the mini looks like, and I think there are splash bottles that look like this too that are bigger. But I actually got a spray, and so here's the packaging of the Ebene. And enjoy looking at this box, ladies and gentlemen. This is not something we get to do very often on Channel Ram. And look at this bottle. It looks like it just came off the showroom floor. Look at this. Look at the state he kept this in. You could eat off of that glass. Look at that. The only thing is when all you can find is the tiniest scratch, which I probably did that in the month that I had this. Look at that. Class. Through and through. Class. Oh. I'll tell you what though, man. This is one of those unicorn masculines that I've been hunting for a long time. Ever since I knew what it was, I was like, I gotta find a bottle of this, and I'm so glad that I did. If you just want to experience it, these minis are fantastic. But it's spicy, it's woody, it's got spearmint in the opening with basil, artemisia, bergamot, and juniper. So it opens up very spicy and sprightly and fizzy. And but you'll notice there's no citrus notes really in the opening. It just opens up kind of green, and the juniper does the job of adding that kind of sprightly opening, but very green, like the color of the juice. But it instantly just goes into that, if you've ever smelled kind of the way that, forget about that extremely citric opening, but if you've ever smelled Tuscany Per Uomo by Aramis, that is very similar to this, Ebene de Balmain, but they've added a ton of citruses in the top. So it's all about this, you know, Amalfi Coast Italian citrus thing in the top of Tuscany Per Uomo. This just gets straight down to business. It's like, fuck the citruses, straight down to business. Cinnamon, geranium, rose, patchouli in the heart with a base of leather, amber, frankincense, labdanum, and moss. Easily could be a signature scent. I mean, this, I mean, what, 1983, Parfums Balmain. If you are a lover of vintage fragrances, this is a must sniff. Put it on your to sniff list, ladies and gentlemen. And you will go back into the scent armory whenever we're done here. And then, probably the find of my Perfume Planet trip in Houston. I don't get to do very many, you know, go to an actual perfume store and sniff because there's nothing around me. So when I went to Houston, you know, I mentioned it earlier when I talked about the Smalto. I got this from him. I got a bunch of things, but I got that and I got this. This was the find of the find of the haul for me. This is called Scott McClintock for Men Cologne Spray, 50 ml. Jessica McClintock is actually the house. There's the little legal verbiage if you're into that sort of thing. And he actually put this on the counter. I was like, show me all the old stuff you got. And a lot of it was like, nope, got it. No, I don't need another backup. No, you know, whatever. And he put this on there, and I was like, what the hell is this? I've never seen this before. And I went to Parfumo, I looked it up, and I saw Anna Malik. It was the very first thing that popped up. Anna Malik. And I was like, I'll take it. I'll take it. And look how they used to do it back in the day. Look at that. Look at that. Just, and let me tell you something. I sprayed this on when I did that video. Oh, fuck. It is unbelievable. I think they've used civet for that animalic note. Civet can sometimes come across as slightly pissy and almost have like this sweet musky side to it as well. But there's citrus notes in the top with floral notes, amber, sandalwood, spices, oak moss, musk, vanilla, and the kicker is in the heart. There is a hard cider note. Hard cider note. This is 1992. Again, a couple years before perfume died, right? I mean, it's slightly powdery, but it feels like you're smelling a powdery side of like the civet is what it kind of feels like, or the musky, you know, animalic musks. It is so good. Backup bottle worthy, 100%. For the $90 I paid for this, I'd have got two. If number one, if I knew. Number two, he didn't have two. This was the last one he had. But for $90, and then I looked it up online. I saw people selling it for $180, $200. So I was like, I'm happy. I'm happy with my $90 for this. This is really good. The only thing I wish it was 100 ml. Wow. This is why I love vintage fragrances. This right here. Stuff like this. The fact that I can just buy some fragrance I've never heard of and just, you know, more times than not, it works out this way. You know, this just came into my possession a month ago, thanks to Armando. And I smelled it and I was like, this is the greatest fragrance Aubusson's ever created, you know. There's no doubt about it. That's why I love vintage fragrances, is even though I'm doing a damn video on vintage perfumes, there are still things like that I have. There's so many vintage fragrances out there to discover. That's the thing. I mean, there's just a wall of vintage fragrances that you run into. And, you know, it can be overwhelming. You can't collect everything, but there's so many hits out there to discover and find. So that's why I'm doing these videos. Okay, Next on the list, we have a fragrance from Richard James. It's the only Richard James fragrance in my collection, and this is called Seville Row. And again, hope you're enjoying the box because I had to search for this guy. Seville Row. Sorry, it's a little dirty. It was in the attic. And Seville Row is basically a floral, spicy, masculine fragrance targeted towards men, completely unisex. But this is a fragrance that's known as, you know, one of the biggest selling points of this fragrance when I hear people talk about it is it's a masculine tuberose fragrance, is kind of what they say. And there is this tuberose accord in the heart. It's beautiful too. Very well done. Very hard note to do. Tuberose can sometimes be very narcotic, and it can be a challenge. Usually tuberose is a no-no for me. But there's ginger, green tea, mandarin orange, basil, bergamot, petitgrain, and rosemary in the top. The tuberose mixes with cardamom, coriander, lavender, lily of the valley, and rose, and then a base of sandalwood, oak moss, suede, musk, patchouli, tobacco, vetiver, and amber. And so that's the thing. They've kind of surrounded the tuberose and lily of the valley and rose with these other masculine notes like lavender and cardamom and tobacco and stuff like that, you know, oak moss, vetiver, and then the kicker for me is the suede. So the suede note in the dry down is what really makes it. And this is another one where I would say if you can find a bottle, for under $100, go for it. Absolutely go for it. Don't pay $200-300 for it though. It's not worth that. But floral, spicy, woody, you know, green, leathery fragrance, very well done, very classy. So Richard James was like a tailor, like a New York City tailor, I think, or something like that. And so this is kind of one of it fits that that style. You know, if you're dressed up in a tux, you could throw Seville Row on, no problem. Okay, next on the list, and we're getting down to the end, is a couple Amens. So I already talked about a few of these Amens, and these are two more that I have not talked about in this video that are in this series, Ramseys Rambling series that's discontinued. And the first one we're going to talk about is Pure Coffee. Whoops, that's not Pure Coffee. This is Pure Coffee. Pure Coffee. And I love Amen. I love its flankers. It is a guilty pleasure of mine. You know, I understand there's ethyl maltol and sweetness and all that stuff. I don't care. I just love the DNA. I always have just a, you know, every time I wear it, I love all of the flankers I have. A taste of fragrance, B-Men, you know, Pure Havana, Pure Malt, the original Amen. I love them all. And Pure Coffee is one such fragrance. One of the best coffee fragrances in my collection. It's coffee, patchouli, musk, cedar, and vetiver is basically what it is. And Jacques Huclier, along with Christine Nagel, made this. And Jacques Huclier pretty much made all of the Amens. But Pure Coffee is, it's kind of, you know, it's one of these, coffee fragrances are very tough for me to do sometimes because I don't like that sweet coffee feel. This has a little bit of that, but that Amen, you know, patchouli DNA saves it for me. And it's so good. I mean, I'm very blessed to have a bottle. Again, these go for $200-300 online already. Don't pay that. But if you can find a bottle for $100, $120, yeah, absolutely, go for it. And then another one that goes for $200 or $300, don't pay that. You can find it for $120, go for it, is Pure Leather. Now, Pure Leather, Pure Coffee came out in 2008. Pure Leather came out in 2012. So it's 11 years old already. And there's really only two notes. Leather and patchouli. That's it. Leather and patchouli. And when you wear this, it almost feels like they tried to take a patchouli note and make the patchouli be leathery. You know, if that makes sense. It really focuses on that patchouli note. It's dark. It is very masculine to me. Even though there's a little bit of sweetness, it's very masculine. And I love this stuff. I mean, any Thierry Mugler Amen flanker I find that I love, but this is it Is it the #1 leather in my collection? No, absolutely not. Can it compete with things like Bel Ami? No, absolutely not. But is it a good leather to wear? Do I enjoy wearing it? Yes, 100%. And both of these are discontinued completely. Okay, 4 left. Let me take a sip of water. We're getting down to the home stretch. My voice is giving out. I'm not used to doing these videos after my week away. Okay. Next on the list. Next on the list, we have a Dusita, and this is just recently discontinued, and I had a chance to buy a bottle at a great price, and I didn't, and I'm kicking myself now. This is being replaced by Montre, which I have a sample of, so I'll do a video on Montre very soon, but Montre is the replacement for this, and this is called Oud Infini. So Oud Infini is the very first fragrance Dusita put out. Very brave release for a very first fragrance, I'll tell you that. Look at that artwork to talk about the scent. And there is a big rose presence, if you will. Rose is a big part of this fragrance. And is it a rose oud? Yes. But is it a rose oud like you've smelled before? I don't know. There's not... I don't think there's very much out there in the rose oud space that smelled like this. I got a lot of musk in the opening, and it's Laotian oud. So the oud itself might remind you a little bit of the way the Laotian oud is done in things like oud palau or stuff like that, right? Maybe even the oud in Floris's Leather Oud has a little bit of that Laotian oud type feel to it. But she uses this beautiful May rose, and the May rose with the orange blossom and the civet. Okay, so it's civet, it's animalic, which I love. I love animalic ouds. That's kind of one of my favorite things right now. I am really turning into a little bit of an oud head. So I wish I would have grabbed the full bottle while I could have got it at such a great price. Now that the word is out, it's discontinued, prices skyrocketed. But I'm happy with my little decant, and I will do a full review of this before this is all gone. You have my word. But Oud Infini is officially discontinued from 2016. The fragrance that basically put her on the map. Okay, next is another decant, and I have a full bottle. This one I do have a full bottle on the way. I don't have it here right now, but I have it on the way, so I feel confident in talking to this. Well, it'll hopefully be here in a couple months, let's say. I don't know exactly how long, but it's coming from the deepest of Poland. And this is called MFK's Ciel de Gum. So Ciel de Gum is a fragrance that was initially created as a exclusive for a Russian department store called Gum. And this is Francis Kirkjohn at his best. Honestly, this is one of his best fragrances of all time that he's ever created. I would say Au Noir, this, and Absolute Pour le Soir are the greatest things he's ever done. And this is basically, what makes this so great is he sticks to his roots. He sticks to the type of perfume that he likes to make, okay? So there's amber, there's pink pepper, there's vanilla, there's jasmine. That's it. Sounds boring, right? It's not. It's actually one of the best ambers I've ever smelled, ever. Oh, God, it's so good. And the jasmine is out of this world fantastic. So it has a little bit of that that Francis Kirkjohn synthetic thing going that he just loves to do. But it's only a smidge here. Some of them, the synthetic is just in your face, right? If you've ever smelled, here's kind of what I think about this. If you've ever smelled this is Gaultier Squared, which they just brought back in a new bottle. I've never smelled it. I don't know what they did to it, but this is a Francis Kirkjohn, and it's kind of like vanilla and amber, and that's it. That's kind of what it smells like. To me, Ciel de Gum is like what this should have been. I would trade this for a bottle of Ciel de Gum in a heartbeat. This has much more complexity, much more depth, it's so much more interesting to me. And that amber note, wow. What a fragrance. And I am very blessed to have found a bottle thanks to Natalia. Thank you, Natalia. Cannot wait for the bottles to arrive. Not holding your feet to the fire, but I just can't wait for them to get here to show you guys everything that is coming from Poland, and that's one of them. So I feel comfortable putting that on the list. I've been sticking to full bottles on these lists, but those 2 decants I had to include. Okay, the last house is Guerlain. And the final fragrance is kind of like a grand finale for me. But first, we're going to talk about another fragrance that actually came from Natalia's first haul, I believe. I believe Natalia found this for me the first time around. So actually, this is part 2 that she's going to be sending me very soon. And she found me a bottle of Ambre Eternal. And I love this stuff. I think she hated it, but I love this stuff. It's spicy, it's woody. God, Thierry Vasseur claims to have used real ambergris in this and on Sans Mythique and stuff like that, and it smells like it. It's like a leathery ambergris. It's like a leathery amber. Actually, you could almost put these two, Ciel de Gaume and Ambre Eternal, kind of next to each other in some ways because they both use amber. This uses leather and cardamom and ambergris and a couple other things. But they both kind of have amber as, I think, the heart of the fragrance. And I'll tell you what, it's a shame this only ran about 2 or 3 years and then got discontinued. This is a 2018 bottle, 8BOJ or whatever it said. So yes, this is a 8BO1 Eau de Parfum, 125 ml. This is like one of the gems of the collection. This and Songe du Bois de Et, or Bois Mysterio as it's called now, 2 of my absolute favorites from this collection. This collection can be a little bit hit or miss, but I love Ambre Eternal, and luckily I've got my bottle, spicy, woody. So sad they discontinued this. Maybe it was just too hard with that ambergris note, because it does smell like you're smelling ambergris. Whether it's real or not, I have no clue. Thierry Vasseur says they used real ambergris in this. Fantastic. And finally, the grand finale. Probably one of the most outrageous buys I've ever made in this entire journey of mine. This is a Baccarat crystal bottle from 1922. Well, this bottle's not from 1922, but the fragrance came out in 1922. Bouquet de Faune. Bouquet de Faune. Or Faunes, if you want to... I don't know how the French people pronounce that, but someone told me to pronounce it like you say faune, not fawn. It's not Bouquet de Faune, it's Bouquet de Faune. But it is out of this world. Now, I bought this because of Russian Adam, who he said this is his favorite Guerlain. And he smelled a decant that was almost like black juice from the original Lalique flacon that had the lamb's heads around them. If you go to Parfumo and look up this fragrance, Bouquet de Faunes, you will see the bottles I'm talking about. And so this is, and you know what's interesting is this is heavy. This is a heavy bottle. There's the Baccarat crystal logo down there on the bottom. I don't think this is a fake or anything. He actually bought this same bottle from the same seller and ended up asking for his money back because he said that it wasn't as animalic as the one he initially smelled, which I completely get that. But I love this stuff. I've never smelled the original, and maybe that's a blessing for me, because this is like this suede. This is like one of the most beautiful suede fragrances I've ever smelled. There's just no way this is fake. There's no way. This is, if someone faked this, they're a genius. They are literally a genius. Now, the only thing I can think of is maybe he watered the juice down. You know, that could be. That maybe the juice was watered down a little bit. But fake? No, this is not fake. This is Oh, man. And I put plumber's tape around just to show how important this is. No bottles get this attention from me. I put plumber's tape around this. Um, and, you know, the way I describe this is basically it's like birth and earth. So imagine a fawn being born and they fall directly into the dirt, right? And whenever they're born, they fall directly into the dirt along with the placenta and all the other stuff that comes out when a fawn is born, right? And I think instinctively, you know, the mothers like eat the you know, they eat the area, they clean the calf off, they like lick the calf and or in this case fawn. But they lick the fawn clean, and then within a couple minutes it's up running, it's up, you know, an hour it's up walking, and it's a miracle and cute and all that stuff. But I want you to imagine, right, that that effect of, you know, the beauty of seeing something being born like that, and also just falling directly into the earth, right, and having this dirt, and along with kind of all of the other fluids that are on the calf, which sounds disgusting, but it's not. It's actually one of the most beautiful things I've ever smelled. It's animalic. That's why I'm describing it that way, because I can't think of any other way to describe it. Obviously, it doesn't smell like blood and placenta and you know, birthing fluid. It doesn't smell like that. But that image, the beauty of birth, and you know, kind of this dirtiness that instantly the calf is born into this world, the fawn is born into this world. It's born into this, maybe a brutal world. Maybe a wolf is waiting to try to eat it. You know, right? The reality of the world that it's born into is instantly hits home as soon as it's born, right? And there's a little bit of that here, but there's also one of the most gorgeous jasmine iris combinations I've ever smelled. It is, oh man, it is, it's like the height of fine French perfumery for me. Now, I want to find a bottle of Metallica. That's one of the last great, I have another haul coming, of course I do, but I have another haul coming next week, and I actually have a couple left that are still coming, but I want to find a bottle of Metallica by Guerlain, or Metalis, whatever you want to call it. Metallica, Metalis. I don't care. I just want to find a bottle of that. I love that stuff. It's one of the final discontinued fragrances that I really don't have in my collection that I really, really want. And so then I think my Guerlain collection is complete. Metallica is like the capstone for me. But if you have any experience with these, do let me know. I hope you enjoyed the video. My throat is absolutely just desert, arid, dry from doing this. I hope you guys appreciated the video. I hope you learned something about some discontinued fragrances you did not know about. Hope you put some bangers on your list to go buy while they're still cheap. Stuff like my scent of the day, you know, or Otto Kern. These could be some cheapies that you'll find floating around. Cycle. Some of them are going to take a little bit more work, like Ebony de Balmain, or, you know, before I think word really gets out how good this is, I would go try to buy a bottle of Scott McClintock for men if you're into that kind of thing. So yes, that's my discontinued video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your favorites are. Let me know which ones you want to buy or that you have on your watch list. I love seeing your faces in the comments. Likes and subscriptions and comments always help the algorithm. We're getting more and more people joining our little fragrance family. I love doing these videos for you guys. I was going to do a live stream, but we'll see how my voice holds up. Maybe it'll have to be tomorrow. But happy Sunday, everyone. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.